Uh, Good afternoon. I'm David Vaughn. Welcome to O-Scale Central Online. It's my honor to serve as president of O-Scale Central. I would note that for purposes of making this available by way of archive, we are recording the proceeding. You should have a little icon on your screen that you can click to agree to be recorded. We are welcoming to our audience today not only O-Scale Central members, but also to followers of Terry Terrance YouTube channel. Terry, who has been a major contributor to O-Scale 2 Rail, is our featured guest today. But since we have additional folks who will be on this, let me tell you briefly who O-Scale Central is and what we do. We're a nonprofit 501c tax-exempt membership organization. We promote O-Scale 2 Rail, and we provide assistance and support to modelers and manufacturers and clubs and other people in the scale. We've been in existence for approximately 25 years. The organization was formerly named O-Scale Kings. We serve as the designated special interest group, or SIG, for the National Model Railroad Association. To carry out our promotional and supportive mission, O-Scale Central sponsors a website, oscalecentral.com. We'll hear more about that later on. We've been undergoing an upgrade. The website is important because it includes both a narrative introduction to O-Scale 2 Rail and a scale-wide product and service guide through which modelers new and established can find and purchase O-Scale 2 Rail equipment. Since we are a small scale and lack visibility, the introduction and guide are important ways to educate new modelers and assist current modelers. As I indicated, the website is now in the process of being upgraded and expanded. It also includes links to O-Scale 2 Rail resources and coming activities, scale history, and information. Eric Peterson will walk us through the website for some of the developments that we've been undergoing, and included by way of a quick plug is an article on O-Scale 2 Rail, which is a survey of what's happening in the scale right now. It is reprinted from the NMRA magazine of May of this year, and it is available on the website for download and non-commercial use if your club or your train show is in need of information about O-Scale 2 Rail. O-Scale Central sponsors these online program. John Wubble supports the development, content, and logistics for these programs, and I really want to recognize and thank John for his work. There is a lot more work in terms of putting these programs together than might be apparent. O-Scale Central also issues a quarterly journal, the Coupler, and a monthly newsletter, the Drawbar. Al Askerberg is our able editor. We represent the scale at all scale train shows and MRA conventions and railroad prototype modelers meets. We support O-Scale 2 Rail conventions, train shows, and other scale specific activities. We work on manufacturer liaison and modular layout development. The website, oscalecentral.com, also contains membership information and applications. We're doing important work for the scale, and we humbly request your review and support. O-Scale Central is an organization on the upswing, not only for what we have done and are planning, but for the new and energetic officers who were recently elected, who will be joining the board of directors in January. And before we turn to hear from Terry Terrance, I want to briefly simply introduce them. Ken Nesper, who is on the call here, will be our new secretary. Ken is from Washington, D.C. David Schultz from Minnesota, also on the call, will be joining the board, as will Al Oslapapas. I know I screwed that up again. Oslapas from Michigan. Joe, who's on the call, Joe Barker from California, and Walter Horlocker from Florida. All will be joining the board. We welcome them and look forward to their contributions. As if they're not, let's move on to our main featured speaker, and I will not do any kind of extensive introduction other than to say that O-Scale 2 Rail is making a resurgence in the back of much of the increased activity in the scale is my friend Terry Terrance. He was the driving force behind the successful 2018 O-Scale National Convention in Rockville, which some people mark as the kickoff of the turnaround that we're seeing. His YouTube channel of layout tours, the videos he did, with its hundreds of thousands of hits, has raised the profile of O-Scale 2 Rail in ways that nobody would have dreamed about prior to the internet. His recent election to the O-Scale Hall of Fame is well deserved, and he has agreed to tell his story, and I'm going to let him tell it. He's prepared some PowerPoint slides to help him illustrate that. And Terry, if you're ready, please take it away.
Yes, thank you, David. And I know this is somewhat pompous, but I titled this presentation, My Life with Trains. And here we go. I grew up in New York City. In New York, the train is equal to subway. Early on, I wanted to be a subway engineer. I later learned that was called a motorman. And I was always the kid in the front of the car with my nose pressed against the glass. I went everywhere by subway. And unfortunately, I also ignored the steam railroads. And there were many, many good steam railroads within walking distance of my house. There was Grand Central, of course, and Penn Station. New York Central's High Line, freight line down the west side, was also within walking distance, as was Central's West Side yards. The Pensy Sunnyside yards were only a 15-cent subway ride away, as were the Vest Pocket yards along New York's rivers. However, there was one place I saw every day in high school. That was the New York Central's Mott Haven coach yards, which were viewable from my high school. And I could also watch the EP5 jets and the turbo trains headed for New Haven territory from Grand Central out of my high school's windows. In fact, my father recommended to the brothers who taught at the high school to keep me away from the windows because I'd be watching the trains all day. Okay, I got my first train set in 1959 when I was about 7 years old. It was Lionel's least expensive train set because my father had to buy a similar set for my brother, who was only 18 months behind me in age. And back in the day, Electric trains were the interactive toy, much like video games are today. There was no shortage of places around New York to see Lionel. Every department store had Lionel trains running in the windows. In fact, my shoe store my mother took me to used to have a Northern Pacific Lionel GP9 running in its window. And I remember that black and gold locomotive as if it were just yesterday. And I was also walking distance to the Mecca for Lionel fans, Madison Hardware. And my father turned me on to Madison Hardware early on, and I could walk there. I found this book at Madison Hardware where Lionel explains how to make their trains more realistic looking. And I followed their instructions and put hand cut and stained ties under my 027 track with bird gravel as ballast. And so that started my migration towards scale railroading, model railroading. By 1983, Lionel had been sold and used post-war. Lionel costs as much as O-scale brass. So I said, what the heck? Why am I paying all this money to get used post-war when I could have better looking brass trains? So I went two rail. And my first two rail brass was a Russell snowplow, which was followed shortly by a B&O Docksider. And that was it. That was all it took. A little bit later on, I found a hobby shop. Now, when I say local hobby shop, it wasn't really local to me. It was like 4 counties away in New York State. But they had the leftovers from the plastic models introduced by Atlas and AHM back in the 70s. And they were still new, so I bought out all that they had. There and after, I accumulated 2 rail gear in the usual ways, shows, eBay, but rarely at the local hobby shop. There just are not many hobby shops that carry 2 rail O. And if you do find one, it's some dusty box of sticks kits that literally the shop owner forgot about from many, many years ago. In 1989, I built a house with a 52-foot basement. And when I said I built it, I didn't build it stick at a time, but I acted as my own general contractor and had the house put up. Now, it was supposed to have a garage under the house, but I said, nuts to that. I want the basement for my layout. And I never built a layout there for the usual reasons. In 2006, we moved to Virginia, where I've had a career opportunity I could take advantage of. And this time, I swore I would build a layout, which is what I did. Now, to do that, I put up 2 sheds in the backyard to hold all the stuff that accumulated in the basement of our house in Connecticut. And that was successful. Here's the track plan that I built to. Now, if you take a 60-inch minimum radius, it's 3x4 Armstrong style squares. A little wider or a little smaller radius would have allowed another lobe a la the Canandaigua Southern. Unfortunately, an O-scale EM1, which was the power on the west end, required 60-inch minimum radius. So I modeled the west end accurately. I was able to model the 3-track Cranberry and the 2-track Cheat River grades. And the 2 grades are in the relative proportions. They're not to scale, obviously, because you can't fit a 13-mile grade in any basement in O-scale. But they are in the relative proportions that the Cranberry grade is longer than the Cheat River grade. Now, the Tray Run Viaduct would have been here on this straightaway section, and that would have been 2/3 full-scale size. So that was going to be a feature of the layout, but I never got around to building it. All the main track was complete on my layout, but I never got to the scenery stage. As David relatively points out, accurately points out, you know, O-scalers don't get around to scenery. Okay. Now, part of the reasons why I didn't finish the layout was I always get taken off on tangents. One tangent I took up was microcontrollers in model railroading. And back in the day, I had a very talented designer that worked for me. And I had the harebrained idea to use field programmable gate arrays as N-scale decoders, because back in the day, there were no N-scale decoders. The plan never came to fruition because it just wasn't feasible. But it turned me on to the uses of microcontrollers in model railroading. And so when TI introduced their Launchpad microcontroller at $4.30 delivered, it was time to get cracking on doing microcontrollers. So I developed my clinic microcontrollers for model railroaders based on, at first on the Launchpad. But as more and more manufacturers introduced similar products, I expanded the clinic to cover many of those. Microcontrollers now have gotten very powerful with the addition of ARM cores. And as a matter of fact, recently, Raspberry Pi, you know, who's very famous for doing single board computers, has introduced a microcontroller of their own. It's called the RP2040. And it's darn near the perfect microcontroller that I can see. So I've gotten re-engaged with the microcontroller part of the hobby. Another tangent I went off on was I also started to do 3D printing for model railroading. And the genesis of this was I wanted a scale size B&O dwarf signal. And I was hoping that, somebody would surplus an early 3D printer and I could do this on my own, but then 3D printing services like Shapeways came about. And I don't like Shapeways, but they do serve a purpose. So I finally had my dwarf, and here's a picture of it. Now that's scale size done from the actual General Railway Signal Company plans. So it's unlike the ones you see for the third 3-rail O scale, which are grossly oversized. I mean, seriously oversized. And I didn't stop with the dwarf. I drew line side equipment, small structures, tools, fixtures, and many other things for my use and the use of other people. I developed a number of clinics, 3D printing for model railroaders being one of them, and your first 3D print being another, and the latter is hands-on. So I'd have people come with their laptops with shape SketchUp on it and have them draw the B&O whistle post, which is a very simple form. Oh, I got ahead of myself with the presentation here. Oh, okay, it rectified itself. Okay, so here you see some of my 3D prints. This is a B&O hose couch that you would find in yards. It would contain a fire hose and a faucet to run the fire hose. Down here, I have a cab I did for the Forlorn Atlas WDT switcher to turn it into an FN2 critter. And here's a critter cab I did for a O-scale critter. Here are a B&O concrete telephone booth, a Pensy telephone box, the aforementioned B&O concrete whistle post, and a B&O telephone box. And in the center here, there should be a third picture which didn't show up. I have a mount for a sound decoder with fan. And this, believe it or not, actually fits inside of the firebox of a K-line Mikado that I had 2-railed from 3-rail. So that's just some of the things I did. Part of this is it's easier for me to 3D design, draw, and 3D print a part than it is for me to fabricate it with my hands. Okay. Model railroading for me has been a lifelong hobby. I made the transition from 3 rails to 2 after many years in the hobby. And model railroading has sustained me and comforted me through life's bad times. When I hit a rough spot in my life, I would pull out either my Lionel catalogs or my model railroader magazines and just read them, and it would bring me a tremendous comfort. So that's pretty much it. Sorry, my voice isn't up to speaking. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, now's the time to answer them.
Terry, one of the things that you did not talk about in your PowerPoint is your layout video campaign and your YouTube channel. And I think that's something that has been a very positive thing for the scale and something you really deserve a lot of credit for. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Well, yes, I can. The genesis of the layout videos was the fact that I went to NMRA 2014 and to help Jim Cantor with his portable layout there. And the then president of the NMRA had never seen two-rail O-scale before. So I decided to make some videos, put them down on a CD-ROM, which are cheap to reproduce, and take them to the 2016 NMRA convention. And I did that, and the first video I did, which was basically a feature-length video that had 5 layouts on it: Jim Cantor's, Chris Smith's, John Sethian's, and Ed Rapay's, and yours, David, has had over 200,000 views on YouTube. So that, and I've continued on in that vein. I've done other people's layouts. I have 4 or 5 layouts in the pipeline that I hope to be able to do over the next quarter or so. And at its height, my layout on my YouTube channel was getting 10,000 hits a month, and much more than that in terms of viewership. So I think it's been a very easy and quick way to promote the scale, because most people are visual.
Yeah, the idea of 200,000 hits of people watching two-rail O-scale layouts and recognizing how impressive two-rail O-scale live and in person is really mind-blowing. And the idea that we're getting 10,000 hits a month on returns, I just think that has been so great for the scale. And I know I get a lot of people that I talk to at shows who will say, "Oh yeah, I know your layout. I saw it on Terry Terrance's video."
Yeah, the whole channel is approaching 500,000 hits on all of the videos.
Can you make a link available?
Sure, I can. Let me get it up. I can post it in the chat before we get off this this phone call.
I think Jamie put it in the chat already.
While Terry is getting that up, are there other questions or comments about Terry's presentation or about Terry?
I'd like to say, Terry, thank you very much for the many layout videos and stuff. I always look forward to that, and it's a neat way to look back too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Terry, for speaking today. And I guess in conclusion, we could say you're a B&O man.
Yeah, well, you could say I started out as a Subway man and just adopted the B&O. Actually, I have a video of my whole journey as out on the channel, so you can review that and see how far I've come in my lifetime.
Hey, Terry, what's your last name?
Terrance, Terrance.
Okay.
While Terry if there are no more questions of Terry or comments, I want to second the comment that we all appreciate the layouts and look forward to them. And 500,000 hits in a scale where the president of the NMRA less than 10 years ago said, "I've never seen an O-scale 2-rail layout." That's quite a comeuppance, and I'm so pleased that Terry's been able to do that. While
Yeah,
Terry,
I think
go ahead.
I think Terry has added an awful lot to the industry and the exposure of O-scale 2-rail, and as well as his help with the Washington DC conventions and everything he's been involved with. It just sets a quality level that we can all try and strive to live up to in the things he's done.
Terry, do you need us to hang on while you get the YouTube link, or how's that going to happen?
I'm just trying to figure out how to post it now.
Just read it off to us, if you would, to start with.
Hold on. Let me get it up here. You can search for my YouTube channel, or you can look for the handle 2-rail O-scale. They recently had us choose handles on YouTube, and that's the one I chose. But it's youtube.com/@2rail O-scale/community. I'm sorry, no, it should be /videos.
Terry, I just searched your name on YouTube and found your channel right away and subscribed. Took about 30
Yes.
seconds.
They're very easy to do. And the real breakthrough came when YouTube decided I had enough followers to start recommending my videos in people's feeds. And then the channel took off.
That's great. There are some real lessons there, and we need to work with Terry in terms of getting additional videos out there. Obviously, these were originally done with the idea that they would simply showcase the layout and sort of by indirection tell all the good things about the scale. But there are clearly things we could do, will do, need to do by way of actually using these to market the scale. But you know, 500,000. Now it's not like funny cat videos, but 500,000 hits for train layouts. I just think that's phenomenal, and I can't help but think there'll be a cumulative increased visibility and increased favor for two-rail O-scale as a result of that.
Yeah, I get people who come up to me at various shows and say they started in O-scale because of my videos, or they had the confidence to modify a locomotive because of my videos. And that's always a good thing.
Yep. Thank you.
I had one
Okay.
additional comment. I think I heard somebody mention we need to get that information on how to access the videos up on the website. And it would also be good for us to put an article in the coupler with the access information as well. So
Well, I
don't know if Terry,
believe I gave all of my videos to Nick, so he can post them anytime he wants, you
Okay.
know, to O-scale Central.
all right,
So
All right.
I'd rather drive the traffic to O-scale Central than to my YouTube channel. While seeing the hits on my YouTube channel is very gratifying, it doesn't do anything to promote the organization.
very good.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Really appreciate your presentation, and I want to thank everybody for looking at it and taking it in. We are now at the point in the program where we do good and welfare. So if there are things that people need to tell, people need to ask, people need to make announcements, now's the time to do it. For this, unmute yourselves as you need to do that.
Our next O-scale Central online event is tentatively set for January 21st. And
That's a Saturday, and unless we
3 p.m. Eastern Standard.
very good. Let me put in a plug, by the way, for the NMRA and in particular its magazine. I know that among many two-rail O-scalers, NMRA has historically been seen as a HO scale centered organization and publication, and there have been a lot of O-scale two-railers who've not particularly thought positively about an MRA. And I see Bob Chellan is pointing to an article that they were very nicely did, which is a survey of what's going on in the scale. It was called O Positive, the Case for O-scale two-rail. And they not only published it, which was nice, and did it without a lot of editorial changes, but they graciously gave us the right to reproduce it and use it for non-commercial purposes. So this article is now linked on our website, or at least it will be when the new website is in place. So if you need flyers for an open house, for a club, for a train show, the article is available. All you do is go on the website, find it, download it, and print out as many copies as you need. They followed up with that by printing a very nice article. We took Tony Custer's sectional layout that he did in Model Railroader in 2020, and redid it for 5-foot gauge and Atlas track, and took it out to the NMRA National in St. Louis. Several of you were involved in that. We had a really good time, and we did an article on it, wrote it up in terms of the kind of teamwork that was involved and the kind of work that we had to do. They printed it again very nicely. And now in this month's NMRA magazine, there is an article on Michael Ross's 2-rail O-scale Virginian layout. And each one of these, whenever they do something of a particular scale, there's a little box in the corner that says what scale it is. So we are getting, it ain't Terry Terrance 500,000 views, but every one of these articles goes to 10,000 people. And while they may not necessarily rush out and sell all of their O-scale immediately, we all know that for many O-scalers, it's a second scale when the eyesight begins to go bad, and when you decide you want to deal with more detail. And we are finding that NMRA is a very good ally in the things that we want to do. And we are trying to, I guess, beta test, field test, a lot of joint participation with the NMRA, doing clinics on O-scale, showing our layouts, our sectional layouts at NMRA conventions. And it has every promise of being very positive. Every one of those guys that are dealing with those itty bitty N scale or HO scale things, at some point they're going to be a candidate to convert to 2-rail O scale, and when they do, we want it to already be planted in their head that it's available and it's a positive community. So consider joining NMRA if you haven't, and consider participating in NMRA conventions and trade shows and so on. We're finding it to be a very positive experience. And in that regard, Eric Peterson in particular has really been carrying the ball on it. But it's been a very positive experience for me. And frankly, I wasn't expecting it, but I've become a convert. Any comments or questions? Any more good and welfare? Anybody got any shows coming up? Anybody got anything interesting you're working on your workbench? What have we got?
Hey, David, I got a question.
Sure, bud.
Are you considering taking the layout to the Harrisburg show in June?
It's certainly possible. I'm not against doing that. I can't say I've been asked, but I can't. I'm not going to play coy on it. I'll reach out to you. Talking Al Judy's show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything against that at all. That's a possibility. I'll talk to Al and we'll see if we can work something out.
Okay. The next question is, did you use the same electrical connectors on the layout that Rich Randall recommended for the modules?
Help me, Rich. Rich, where are you?
Yes, as far as I know, the guys who helped you, Brian and Nick, did follow the electrical standard, Anderson power poles.
Yes,
Okay.
we did use Anderson power poles, and I know the front track, at least on the sectional layout, is the same distance from the front. It should plug right into the modules. That's something we're still working on. But you know, for those people who say O-scale is too big, sectional and modular layouts are a way to try and deal with that issue.
Super. Thank you.
Thanks, bud. Anybody else?
David, to let you know, the O positive article is in the top access line, is in the top of the O Scale Central website.
Terrific. And that's available for any scale promoting activity that you want to do. You want it for yourself. It's got the relevant links. It's got sort of how to get started. It talks about secondary markets. I wrote it myself, so I should not pat myself on the back, but it's a very good way to familiarize yourself with O Scale 2 rail if you're not already there. And it's a good quick index, even if you are. And excuse me, and if you need it to try and convert your HO scale buddies, put it on the table at train shows in the front where they always have the meeting announcements. If you're doing a club open house and you need something to sort of get people up and running as to what the scale's all about, you can do it real quick. And this is a service we provide. There's no charge. And we appreciate NMRA letting us do it, but feel free to take advantage of that. Do it as part of an overall, familiarizing yourself with the website. There's a lot out there. Some of the things you may be able to use, you may go there and say, you know what, you guys really ought to be doing XYZ that you're not doing. We appreciate that kind of feedback too.
David, I have to share this locomotive briefly. A three-railer had it. I don't know how he acquired it, and I have the tender too, but it's a Loba 06.
Loba. Okay.
And he said they're worthless because he didn't say they're worthless. He said he had no use for it because nobody's in two rail. And so I told him, give me a price, and he gave me a price. I said, you know what, I'll take that off your hands. I mean, for the price, I would have put this on a side track on a three rail layout just because it looks good.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that problem we have is three rail is very visible right now. Lots of toys, lots of literally bells and whistles. But people are just not that familiar with scale two rail, and everything we can do to promote it, I think, is going to either bring people from other scales into O or from three rail to something a little more accurate and wonderful.
Anybody built a low ball locomotive? Let me see hands for people who have had or built a low ball. Not very many folks. Roland Lowball was a machinist, and the mechanisms on low ball locomotives are absolutely phenomenal. The machining is very, very good, and they run like a top when they're well put together. Yeah, that cat is out of scale, Mr. Jellin. All right. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? Any other comments? We appreciate everybody's participation, and we think of ourselves as having a real community in two rail O scale. It's one of the advantages, I guess, of being small, and we hope that these programs are part of building that community. And you can encourage people, if you like what you're seeing here, encourage them to look at the website, encourage them to join O Scale Central. Unless there's anything else, we're about ready to adjourn this puppy.
One other thing, I'd like to remind everybody that in order for the coupler to be a valuable quarterly newsletter, we need content for it. And Al is our editor for the coupler. And so while you're watching a football game this weekend, how about sitting down and taking a couple pictures of something you did, or the pictures you already have them on your phone, and write up a page or a half a page about it, about your unique idea or your repeated use of the same old idea, and get it off to Al. We really need, if we're going to have a quarterly newsletter that's attractive and interesting, we've got to have content. And That's up to us and all your other O-scale friends that you may be acquainted with through clubs or other groups. Please spread the word that this is a good way to get some information out about O-scale. And that's in addition to promoting membership in O-scale Central. So
Thank you, Eric. One last thing for the new officers who'll be coming on board. Eric and I will be reaching out to you for one-on-one discussions. And I'm going to try and get an email out this afternoon on that for your availability. If there's nothing else, January 21, 3 p.m. Eastern will be the next show. If you got any ideas for the show, anything that you'd like to see that you didn't see, anything you saw that you'd rather not see in the future, let us know, particularly John Wubble. He's our coordinator on this. But in the meantime, thank you. Happy holidays, happy modeling, and appreciate you taking your time with us this afternoon. Bye now.
Same to all.